What's going on, Jab Jab Talk Nation? It's your boy Ozil back behind the microphone in front of the camera. How are you doing? Where have you been? More have you been, Ozil? I've been in hiatus mode. I apologize. It's been a minute. I took a hiatus towards the end of the year. I got real busy with work. I think I shared a little bit about this on the previous videos. I do content creation. I'm in marketing for a living, but my love for boxing is always going to be there. And when it's busy and there's fights to talk about, I'm going to jump in front the camera behind the mic and share with you. So that's what we're doing today. It's I know it was slowing down towards the end. It's about to pick up. Boxing is about to get really busy. So expect a lot more content coming at you with Jab Jab Talk. If you are, we lost a couple subscribers. Can you believe that, y'all? We lost a couple subscribers. It's all good. I know when things get a little dormant, get a little, get a little quiet, people unsubscribe. I get it. But for the all of you, I think it's 299 subscribers, all of you, if you're sticking around, stuck around, thank you so much for your love and support. Again, your subscribe, your follow is never taken for granted. So much love, and thank you again for the support. So let's talk. And by the way, Happy New Year. Happy 2025. As I mentioned, boxing is going to be busy, y'all. It's crazy to look at the calendar. I was looking at the calendar, and I know we have a big fight tonight with Diego Pacheco, and I forgot the other guy's name, Steven something. Let me know if you're going to be watching that fight. But there's a lot going on. A lot going on in boxing. You got David Benavidez and David Morrell. It's going to be a crazy, great fight next weekend. But let me bring it back to the focus of what today's video is all about. This is exciting. This is exciting. All the rumors and all the news lately in boxing has been, are we going to see Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Bud Crawford in the ring in 2025? Are we seeing it? Now, all the rumors and all the meetings and everything that's been going on circulating, it looks like it's a done deal. I believe it's confirmed. Don't know. I saw something earlier today that it may be in May, possibly. I think September 13th was the date. It's going to be one of those days. But I think it was in the beginning, it was all talks for September. Now I saw something that may be in May. Don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that it's pretty much a done deal in the fight. What do I think about the fight? And I'm curious to know your thoughts on the fight. I'm pretty sure you've been watching other YouTubers talking about this big fight. You know, I said this before. I wasn't really excited about this fight because Canelo Alvarez, we know the weight difference. And we know that there are divisions for a reason. And, you know, Canelo I agree with them. You know, to his point, he was like, if I beat Bud Crawford, everybody's going to say that he's a smaller guy. So why even take the fight with Bud Crawford if you're not going to give me credit? And he has a point. And if anything, he has everything to lose, because if he happens to have a bad night and he loses against a smaller guy, then it's all the legacy, all the love is going to go to Bud Crawford. It's like overnight, that's it, you know. And it'll be Bud sealing the legacy for Bud Crawford. And I feel like Bud Crawford needs a big legacy fight, and we'll get to that in a bit. So it'll be a lot to lose in that fight. And again, I understand that Canelo Alvarez, I get it, is heavily favored, the bigger guy, natural at that weight. He seems pretty unbeatable at 168. But again, if he has an off night, this could be an interesting fight for Canelo Alvarez. So I wasn't really thrilled about this fight, but I will say that now thinking about it, it does seem like an interesting fight for several reasons. Number one, there isn't anybody in 168 anymore for Canelo Alvarez. That's just facts, right? There isn't. I think if he may fight William Scully, was the IBF champion right now, to unify, and then fight Crawford in September 13th was kind of like the strategy, how this roadmap would be for Canelo. Spice up the unification fight with Bud Crawford would be great. I get that. But there isn't many fighters, and he's not going to fight Benavidez and any of the other top dogs at 168. So what does Canelo have left? And I'm here. I mean, I don't know. It's just, and I agree. I think there's really not nobody left. If I were Canelo, if I may, I think he sealed his legacy. I think he's done a fantastic job. Maybe one or two fights, and I think just call it a day, bro. Like, if you're not going to fight some of the big dogs or move up weight, and he hasn't been kind of clawing at the 175 weight class after he lost to Bevo, it's like, for what? You tested, didn't go well. Maybe you can have another fight at 175, and go at it again. But I don't know about him beating Bevo at 175. I really don't. So I'm thinking, just take a couple fights and then just bow out. Like the man. Just, that's it. You got your legacy, and you'll be known as the king at 168. That's if I were his manager. Now there's a lot of money involved. Canelo's still hungry, and he still feels like he has something to prove. And that's unfortunately the sad part about boxing, is that there's always going to be ego involved, and there's going to be money that's going to be the driver. So as long as the money is there, and he is like a businessman, Canelo Alvarez will still get in the ring and put himself out there. Potentially, whether or not it's calculated, it is very calculated. But when you get in the ring with anybody, I mean, there's always an opportunity for the other person to beat you. So he's still putting himself out there. So you got to respect that. But all in all, I mean, what do I think about the fight? I mean, it's going to be an interesting fight. I think Canelo Alvarez absolutely has he's heavily favorite for good reason. Here's the thing that's going to be really interesting about this fight, and these are some questions that I have. I'm curious to know your thoughts. That Bud Crawford is going to go up to 168. First time fighting on 168. We all know he fought at 154 with Madrigal, I believe his name, Madrigal. I'm pretty sure I mispronounced it. And it was a really good fight. It was competitive. And the dude gave him a lot of trouble. And Bud really didn't look that great. And I think it was because of the style, but he just didn't look that great. Bud hasn't never been one of the most active fighters, exciting, super talented. And I think he's kind of gotten off. He got kind of lucky in the fact that kind of coming up with this weight class and even cleaning out his divisions, he really didn't have a lot of good competition. I mean, let's be real. He fought Earl Spence even later on, when people were calling for that Earl Spence early on. Now, I know he dismantled and beat him soundly, but that fight could have happened a little earlier. Could we have seen a different result? I don't know, but it took a minute, right, for him to actually fight an elite fighter. Not his fault. He hasn't really had a lot of top level opponents or competition in all the other divisions, in the lighter divisions. But now he's coming up against a 168, going up two weight classes to fight Canelo Alvarez. What's really interesting about this fight is that both of them are going to be motivated. And we're going to see Crawford going up to 168 to test Canelo Alvarez. And Bud Crawford is different in the fact of where we saw Charlo going up from 154 to 168. And we saw how that happened. But, Crawford is a dog. Like, he likes to fight. And I don't feel like he's in a fold like Charlo did. Even though he's a lot lighter than Charlo, I think he will be the smaller but bigger guy ready to fight. So Crawford has that dog in him, and I think that's what makes it really, really interesting. I mean, we saw what he did with Earl Spence. Crawford is going to come there to fight and win, and he knows this is a big legacy fight. So he'll come in there with a chip on his shoulder. He'll be motivated, and I mean, obviously he knows he's going to cash out, but he's going to go out there with a bang. And I do feel like Crawford does have the skill sets to really, really make this interesting. Now we saw whenever Canelo fought boxers and boxers with good footwork. We saw how there was some trouble with early on with when he fought Caleb Plant and when he fought even Amir Khan. Had his moments where he was fighting and he was good light on his feet until Canelo caught him. But whenever they were using their feet, they gave Canelo issues, and we all know that those type of fighters are going to impose some challenges for Canelo. And Crawford has that and then some. And I think it'll be really interesting to see what type of mentality Crawford brings into the table. And if he can take a hit by Canelo, we know that he's been tested before. We've seen him do the shaky legs. We know he can be rocked. And if you get clean shot by Canelo, I think this is the kind of fighter that you don't want to face in Canelo Alvarez to get rocked by. I think this is the guy that will knock you out. Now, here's another thing that I feel like it's the advantage for Bud Crawford. Canelo has slowed down. And what could happen is Canelo goes in there and tries to be calculated and tries to get into the boxer mode. And that's where I believe Crawford will have the advantage. I believe that Crawford will have the advantage in the fact that he will outbox him, frankly. He could outbox him, and we could see that because Canelo has slowed down. He doesn't have that killer instincts like he used to, even in his head movement. And we saw that with Edgar Berlanga. He got hit, he got tagged a few times. So if Crawford can bring that velocity and high volume in punching, and with the boxing ability skills that he has, this could be easily a 50-50 fight, y'all. It can. And I know a lot of people are saying, hey, well, wait a minute, there's weight classes. Sure. But if Crawford can kind of figure out a way to dismantle the power and just move and just box him, this could be a really interesting fight too, where it may be like towards the end of the later rounds where it could be the decisive factor. So in the beginning, I was just like, on paper, I don't know, but I get it. Both of them, Crawford is undefeated. He has a name. He's moving up weight. He's challenging himself. And here we have Canelo Alvarez saying, well, I don't have anybody, but Crawford is a name. I could make the money. Turkey Alasi is going to, over there is going to pay him some big dollars. And of course, the money makes sense for him to get in the ring. And he's probably thinking, this is a smaller guy coming out. Why not? So Canelo's probably looking at it like this could be a good fight, big name, a lot of money, and I can beat him because of the size. But it may be just ego. It may, will it be too much for Canelo? Like, would he finally meet his match in fighting a really talented boxer that will cause some problems and create a style that's going to make it very difficult for him to fight? Could be. And that's the question that I think we're all asking as boxing fans. Is like, this could be the fight that could really turn things around. And could Crawford beat him? Yeah, I think if Canelo, check this out, if Canelo has an off night, and let's say he just doesn't punch, and I think Crawford could beat him. I really do. I do feel like Crawford could beat him. Now, if we see a Canelo that goes in there, and this is kind of like how I would approach it, that goes in there kind of like the way he did with Triple G, go in there and just bully, kind of what he did with Berlanga. Come forward, bully, pound his arms, just bully him, get him inside and take some good shots. This could be a really early night for Crawford. I do believe that Canelo does have the punching power to knock out Crawford for sure, if he bullies him. But I'm afraid that if Canelo goes in there to try to box and move his head and try to keep it calculated and maybe throw one punch or two and then throw a big punch, and I think if he does that, I don't know if that'll be enough to beat Crawford. I think you have to like change up the style, because at the end of the day, Crawford is smaller, but he's still crafty. And that craftiness, Canelo still has to find an answer to that. So that's what makes this fight really interesting. And I'm really excited about this fight, actually. I think it'll be a really, really interesting fight. Both, big household names, of this era. And I think this could be a really mega fight. It could be really, really interesting. The question is, what if Crawford goes up to 160 and beats Canelo? What happens to Crawford's legacy? What happens to Canelo after that? I mean, talk about the ego being deflated after that. I mean, that'll be a big blow. You're fighting a big name, a younger, not younger, Crawford is older, I believe, but a lighter fighter that comes up at 168 and beats you. That would be a big blow, because we all know that the heavier fighters, Canelo, although he did beat Kova, but he struggled with Bivol. But if he got this young guy who came up there and whooped him, that'll be an ego check for sure. So there's a lot of really exciting things about this fight. So again, before I didn't like it for Canelo. Crawford, of course, because Crawford is calculated himself. I mean, he doesn't fight a lot of active. He's not active. He's not an active fighter. And that's the thing about Bud Crawford that I always kind of was like, and even, I want to say this. Here's my little rant. When it comes to like Bud Crawford, Earl Spence, Gervonta Davis, when you look at these fighters, they're amazing athletes, super skillful. They won championships and they unify and they're beating their competition. But do they have the activity, the chops to fight bigger competition, to stay active, to really make them a legacy fighter, to put them in the Hall of Fame? I just don't see it. Like, Gervonta Davis barely fights. Yes, he sells out crowds, but he barely fights. When he fights, he's very calculated. Doesn't fight really people in his weight class. And then he'll make all these stipulations and all this other stuff that he does. And we got Crawford, who's very calculated, who's just really kind of coasted through really soft competition throughout his career. Really hasn't fought a lot of the top fighters. I mean, he didn't fight Thurman. He didn't fight really none of the big fighters. Fought Earl Spence, and if I can't think of anybody else that he really Postol was I guess a good fighter, but I just don't see anybody else that's like, okay. Then you look at Canelo's resume, and he's fought from top down. Yes, he's had a couple scrubs. That's what I'm saying. When people say, "Oh, he's cherry picking," how can you say he's cherry picking when Gervonta Davis' resume and Crawford resume and Earl Spence resume? I mean, credit to Earl Spence. I mean, Earl Spence fought some top fighters, but if you look at Bud Crawford's and Gervonta Davis, they really don't have like a loaded resume. They really don't. If you think about it, look at the resume. They really don't. So this could be a really interesting fight, a great test for Crawford to go up against an elite fighter. And yes, Canelo is fading, and I feel like if there's any opportunity, any time to beat a Canelo, then this would be the time. I think that if Canelo sleeps and he's takes a night off, or he has a bad bad night that night, Crawford could beat him. Crawford could definitely beat him. But I feel like another thing that I think Canelo will go into this is like, okay, well, I got to step up and really work out. I got to train even harder because I'm not going to let this young, this lighter weight dude come and beat me. So he'll have a chip on his shoulder as well. I think he'll be motivated as well, which could be very dangerous for Crawford when you kind of like ignite the fire in him again and get him motivated. I feel like with Edgar Berlanga, I feel like he just like, I'm going to walk through him. But I think with Crawford, I think he'll take a different approach. He has to. If he sleeps on it, then Crawford could beat him. But if he takes approach like, I'm going to whoop this guy because he's a lot lighter. I got to make sure that I'm on my top 8 game. I'm going to make him look like, he's a scrub. Like he has to do what basically Crawford did to Earl Spence. I think that could be a big signature, big moment for Canelo Alvarez. So anyhow, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you today. I'm curious to know your thoughts on the big fight. I'm pretty sure we'll be covering it a lot more once we kind of get official confirmation and we get the date and all that. There's going to be a lot of talk happening between this whole Crawford Canelo fight. But, let me know what you think down below in the comment section. What do you think about the fight? Who wins? Is this a good fight for Canelo? Is this a good fight for Crawford? I think for Crawford, I think he's on his way out. I think he's shared before with a couple of trainers that he's ready to kind of clock out and get rid of, just retire. So I feel like he's going to get a good cash out for this fight. So, I mean, it's a win-win for him. I honestly, I think it's a win-win for him. So we'll see. But yeah, comment down below, Jab Talk. Thank you so much for checking out the video, and I really do appreciate it. And we'll stay tuned. Make sure, and this is the first time, make sure you subscribe because we'll be pumping out a lot more content. I'm going to be covering the Benavidez fight, Benavidez Morel fight next week. So stick around for that. All right, y'all. Peace.